Today we're going to be going through the project, creating a project using iMovie, and I already have iMovie open on my computer. On yours, there might be an icon in the dock at the bottom, which is the purple star for iMovie. If you don't have that, in the upper right-hand corner, there is a magnifying tool, and it is the spotlight search. So you can type in the word iMovie, hit enter, and it will open up. So on mine, like I said, we don't have any projects created yet, so we are going to hit the create new button, and we are going to create a new movie. We're not doing a new trailer. So this will just give us a blank project. At this point, I had pulled in some footage from a previous time, but right now you will likely have an arrow right here that says to import footage. But the main button that we're going to be using most often is this little one up here. So it's a small down arrow, and if you mouse over it, it will tell you import video from a camera or folder on your computer. So often when you mouse over things in iMovie, it will give you a little bit more information if you're unsure of what you're looking at. So we're going to click on that. Just give it a moment to open. Okay, I have a number of folders on my desktop, and I'm going to be using the ones that are under this folder, iMovie exercise folder files. You can click on the little triangle to expand what's in it. If you double click, it will only show you what's within that particular folder and remove from view the other options. So for this, I have exercise files, and I have a couple different things. These are all videos from the Appalachian Trail. So I could select just a portion of them or all of them. So for today, just to have everything in here, I'm going to hit all, and then I'm going to say import selected. And then I'm actually going to come back here. Actually, it'll close that out, and then you'll go into that program again. And then I'm going to pull in the images that we also have that are related. You can hold down the Command key and select additional things, but depending on how many folders you have, you may just want to do them in batches. So for me, I'm just going to do batches. I'm going to say import selected on these. I'm going to go in one more time here. So I often go through and pull them all in at the beginning, or at least the majority of the footage that I'm looking for. It will take a couple moments to actually process, even though the thumbnails are available. I'm also going to come in here. I have something called CC Music, which is Creative Commons music, and I can select a couple different songs that we have here. So I'm just going to just select one actually for right now. So again, we're not using any copyrighted music, so we wouldn't be using our favorite music that we listen to on the radio. There's plenty of different styles that we can give you different links to resources where you can find that. The one that we used for those songs was mostly ccmixter.org. So as you can see here, we have a number of different videos in the project now. Since they were pretty short, they should have processed, but often what you'll get is in the bottom left-hand corner is a little graph, a little pie chart essentially that shows how far it's processed. Also in the upper right hand corner of the whole program, you'll also see a pie chart, and that will be the overarching process. So for all of the videos, if they have all processed and are ready. So sometimes, like I said, it will give you a thumbnail version even if it's not fully ready to be used, because these are so short, it actually has processed all of them. So a couple things. Let's just start with the footage that we have. So this is footage you've never seen. When I'm looking at this area, this is what is called, we're under the My Media section, and these are all of our raw clips. These are all of the clips that haven't been touched. They're in their entirety from the import. Any of the still images have a small little camera icon, and then any of the other ones I can mouse over and I can scrub, is what the term is, to sort of see how each clip goes. So this is someone running, right? Sometimes that's all you need. These are short clip, so it's not that hard. If you had a video that was more long, so in this case, this gentleman is speaking and then he does go run. But say this was a longer interview, say this was a 5-minute interview and he's standing here in the same position, in the same place, essentially for 5 minutes. As you mouse through, all the shots will essentially look very similar. So sometimes what is very helpful when you're working with at least the documentary footage, or other footage for that matter, is pulling in the raw clip and then finding the sections that you really think are crucial. So for instance, if we had this as a 5-minute video, he maybe has a quote in here that's only 20 seconds that you really want. So a couple things you can do here. I could select a portion of this video. You can use these little handles at the end. You can see that my mouse changes as I do that, and I could select only 6.5 seconds of that particular video. I could pull it directly down into this project, but I don't actually want to do that right now. The other thing that you can see here is that these are just one thumbnail version of each video. And again, if you have a much longer clip, you may need to expand that. So let's show you that technique and tool up here. Up in the upper right hand corner is this gear. And so I often come up here and adjust how I'm looking at my raw clips. So I will zoom into this, and what it'll allow me to do is more quickly see on a frame-by-frame basis, depending on how far I stretch it out, exactly, where the movements are. So for instance, if I wanted to get him when he's speaking and he's saying, right before the first syllable comes out of his mouth, I want to get it right before he speaks, I'm more precisely able to select those portions of a video. Right now, because it's a short clip, I took it down to ½ second per frame, but I could, pull it back a little bit and still use it to fine tune. I can also change the clip size. So if I wanted to see a little bit more of all the different clips that are on here, I can't see as much of the detail, but I can get a quick, I was like, oh, okay, I want to get to the section where he's running in the field versus when he's running in the forest. So there's things like that that I can more swiftly toggle between the different footage that I have. You can also show audio waveforms to see which sections have audio in it and which don't. For me, I don't need that particularly right now. And then I can click out of that and go back and make those adjustments later. So let's go back to this section where I had selected a small portion of this particular clip. And actually, maybe I will, let me do this. I'm going to actually make my clips a little bit bigger again. And let's see here. So I am going to change this so it puts the beginning of the clip right before he comes into the screen. And then I could take it to when essentially I think he sort of is about to disappear here. Right, so he goes behind a tree at this point. So the other option that you can use, I don't try to teach too many key combinations, but on the keyboard itself, if you hold down the control button and click O, O is for out. So it could be the end of a clip. So for instance, if I was taking my cursor here and I had my cursor exactly where I wanted a video to start, I could use the little handles, but sometimes just getting it exactly where I want it to, I could just do Control I for in, and then I would take it to the end and say Control O for out, and it more precisely selects just the portion of the clip that I want. Okay, so I have a very precise portion of a clip that I want to use. I may not be ready to use it right now. So this is an important process when you're creating a documentary film, is to just give a first pass on the footage. So what we're going to do is select all that, and then over here underneath our preview screen, let me go back here a second, we have two different options. We have a heart and we have an X. So the X is to reject the selection. It doesn't actually delete it, it just deletes it from your view. That's not what we want. In this case, we want to favorite it. So I'm going to favorite that, and then I can unselect, and now I have this green line at the top. So it shows that I thought that that particular clip was something I'm going to use in the future. I could come here again. Let's see if I find another clip here. All right, so again, I can do Control I, and that puts that puts the beginning of the video right before his foot comes into frame. And I'm gonna get it, go back here right as his foot goes out of frame, and Control O for that. So now I have a very, very short clip of only his foot going in and out of the frame. So it's clean in, clean out. So it you see the entire motion in the frame here. So I'm going to do the same thing on that. Put a heart favorite on it, and then there's other areas so that you could do. Let's see here. So if for some reason I wanted this last section to be removed, I could highlight just that section and click the X. It will then put a red line at the top of it, so, signifying that I don't think that that's a clip that I will be using in the future. And as I go through, I could also even do some that I could split like a clip right in the middle and remove something in the middle. So say the tripod fell over and there was all sorts of footage that is sort of shaky or something in here. I could do that. So one more option up here in the upper right hand corner after you have gone through and done that first pass. So just for right now, I'm going to actually also do one more here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the heart again. Under all clips, this drop down list, it'll give you a couple different options. I could just go to my favorite. So this is the convenient part of giving that first pass and looking at all the footage that you have. It allows you to more easily come in and say, all right, yeah, throw this in, throw this in, throw this in, and really start pulling your project together in a speedier way, but you've already thought out what kinds of clips you're looking for. So it's not really haphazard way of doing it. It's just taking different steps in the process. The other option is hide rejected. So all that did, so this was that one clip that used to be all one, and then I chose to put a section in the middle to say that I was rejecting a clip. So now it actually sort of splits that video into two, and then the other one I had cut off a section at the end of the one clip here. So I could hide the rejected. I could just show the rejected ones to see if I had made a mistake. So for instance, maybe I didn't actually want that one to be rejected. So I could go back there, and now everything should be back. So yeah, again, this one I just unrejected, and so now it's all back together again. And then again, I could zoom this back out so I could more easily see, okay, here's the one clip, here's the next clip, so on and so forth. So that's the first pass that I recommend doing. So for right now, I could come back through here and pull in my favorites, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to all clips, and I didn't actually pull in my audio file, so I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to my import, and I'm going to go back to desktop. So I did have to use my drop down list up here to get back to the top of the desktop, so I did that. And the video or the audio file that I want is I recorded a short poem done by Mary Oliver called How I Go to the Woods. So I'm going to use some of this Appalachian Trail footage with a poem and just do a very simple narration. So now that I have that in, that is down here. Because I'm going to base this documentary, this short little video, off of a narration, I'm going to pull that in first. So I can start it right from the beginning, or I could move it a little bit farther down, but there it is. And it's 37.8 seconds, so obviously we aren't going to have a very long video here. So I can do a couple things. I could start by pulling in some of the footage that I have. I do have still images. So one other thing to know about iMovie, and I do highly recommend using still images. So especially if it's a found footage type of project that you aren't going out and recording your own footage, you don't always have to find all video clips. So you can use still images and make great use of them to help illustrate the story that you're telling. Under preferences in iMovie, so iMovie preferences, there is an option in here to make some adjustments on how images, still images, are pulled in. And it's really important to change this. So under photo placement here, it defaults to what is listed as Ken Burns. And Ken Burns is a documentary filmmaker. He did a film on the Civil War. There is no video footage of the Civil War, so he created or made famous the technique of panning and zooming across images to give the illusion of movement. It can have a useful place in videos, but it is overused at this point. So normally what I want to do is I want to change this to crop to fill. So it'll take any of these different pictures. So you see there's different aspect ratios, sizing on these, and it will fill the whole screen with it. You can make some adjustments of exactly how it does that. But I recommend going in here so you don't have to adjust each image individually. The second option is photo duration. So in iMovie, it defaults to bring in every single image at 4 seconds. At this point, I'm not going to make any sort of adjustments on that, but if you think most of your images you're going to want to have in for much longer, you could change that to 6 seconds or 8 or whatnot. So after I do that, I can just click out, and so I could start, maybe I'll start with this beautiful picture. So actually, I think this one's great. Okay, so let's start with this. I will just pull this down, and again, it has 4 seconds on here. I can hit crop on it, and at this point, if I wanted to make it a little bit smaller, I could do that. If I wanted to do that Ken Burns thing, I could add that, which I do not right now, but maybe I'll show you a reason why we would use that on a later picture. After I have all those things adjusted, I can just hit the check mark up here. So anything that you have selected, so down here in my timeline, I have this selected in yellow, that will give you these options up at the top. It'll give you different editing tools. So right here we have our editing tools, and they're only related to a still image. So I could go through and I could do color balance, color correction, cropping, but stabilization is turned off, as is audio, and noise reduction, speed, clip filter. Any of the things that are related to movement or sound are turned off on this because we are not using that currently. But I could come over here, and then I could, let's see here. All right, let's do this picture, or this video clip. I'm going to drag that down here. And now that I have this selected, all of these other options up here are on here. So my voice is speaking, and there's also audio related to the sound of the water here. So they are going to be conflicting, so we'll talk about that in just a moment too. Again, I could crop anything. At this point, I don't need to do that. If the video was really shaky, I could make some adjustments and put in some stabilization. I may pull down the audio level on this to make sure that it doesn't conflict with my voice, or I may not actually want sound at all. So I could pull the volume all the way down if I wanted to. Another option could be speed. In this case, it was a panned video, so we tend not to want that. But if this was a tripod shot that was stationary, and so we weren't actually panning the camera itself, and you had a much longer version, you could speed it up, or maybe you could just slow down the process. So that's what the speed option gives you: slow, fast, freeze frame. So on this, I'm going to listen to it here. Right. And on that, there is actually not just the sound of water, it's actually near a road. So you hear someone kind of muffled talking in the back, you hear cars. It's not what I want. So what we're going to do is we could, go up there to the audio and pull down the audio. But also you can see here when I mouse over, it shows me the audio waves a little bit, and I can mouse over and get my cursor to turn into the two little triangles, and I can pull that all the way down. So you can change how loud. You can also amplify it, which would be far too much, but we're going to pull that all the way down. So now there's no other sound that is conflicting with my own voice in my own recording. And so I can go through this process to pull in clips. At this point, these are somewhat random. I'm looking for some that maybe don't have as many of the person running in it. Let's see here. Well, he's running there. Perfect. I'll do this one. And maybe we'll end with this lovely image. Okay, so I have my own narration here, and maybe I want to pull in music as well. So I want to give some sort of sound and ambiance that's in there. I think that the song that I had pulled in previously was a little bit too short, so let me just grab some other song. Let's see how that one sounds. Okay, so this is 1 minute 6 seconds, and so I can pull this in. Also, you want to work and try to find the right music for your recording, and so if you choose something that takes away from what the tone is of the story, then it's not really complimentary. So you want to try to find something that helps complement the story that you're telling and not take away from it. In this case, this song, like I said, is 1 minute 6 seconds. Here underneath our preview screen, we do have settings, or we do have another slider bar, which is essentially the same thing that we have up here in this gear. And this allows me to shrink everything down so I can see everything all in one screen. If I listen to this, okay, the music has completely overpowered my voice. So I could pull down that audio significantly to get it to a point that hopefully you can hear my voice, and that is critical. So you don't want to put all your work into your narration when no one else can hear what you're saying. So all these extra sounds, music, sound effects, anything like that, all the bells and whistles are only enhancements if it complements your voice and you can hear your voice and your story first and foremost. Black oak tree. I have my way. Okay, so that is still very loud, and maybe I need to pull my voice up a little bit. So I'm gonna increase mine. I'm gonna take the audio down. Black oak tree. I have my way of praying. Okay. And sometimes, like I said, it might be a little bit that you need to come and fine tune up here. So if I take that down to 5%. So one other thing that is crucial here is if I select the audio that I want to hear, this is the audio that I want to hear, then I could, instead of pulling the whole track down, so I could come back here to the original, put it back at 100%. Let's see here. And then I could select my own voice, and I can select this. So this is very important. So you're going to select the audio that you want to hear. So your narration, or maybe a clip like this when he was speaking. And I'm going to put a check mark in this box that says lower volume of other clips. And then I'm going to slide it to the right. It doesn't tell you which direction to slide it to, but you slide it to the right. And I'm not sliding it all the way. There's actually a little bit of black here on the slider bar. And what that allows me to do is it will duck the volume of everything else. So when I do that, pull this down. Right. Check mark. Slide this down. Almost. Okay. So now when I look here, you can kind of see it. Here we go. You can see that at the beginning there's music, and then my voice comes in and it immediately ducks the voice down, the audio down. And as I move it, it will adjust that. So it's panning the audio down and then panning it back up. So again, this still might not be exactly how I want it to sound, but we can work on it a little bit here. I could open this up a little bit. Let's see here. And then I could listen. Ordinarily, I go. Okay, so that was still not really great. So I'm actually going to pull this down a little bit more so it's a little bit more subtle. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers, and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the... Okay, so a couple of things quick here. I actually didn't pull the audio down on these other video clips, so I want to make sure that there's no other sounds that are coming in. There is some music that's going to play without anything else at the very end here. I also haven't put in a title slide, so although this isn't the best video we've ever created, we have a couple images, we have 2 layers of audio, but one thing that is extremely helpful and useful are the title slides. So we're going to come up here. We've been on My Media. We're going to go to Titles. And much like PowerPoint and other programs, there are a series of different types of titles. And some are silly and whimsical, such as Boogie Lights and the one that looks like Star Wars credits, but we don't always want to use those. Less is more. Consistency makes a much better and professional production. So we're going to create, obviously use one that is the standard title for the beginning of the film. So this one is just called Standard, Expand. So any of these ones that are sort of in the middle of the screen, and you can mouse over and see what it does. So maybe I'll do this one that says Line. Couple things I can do. I can put it on top of this first clip and it will superimpose it over the picture. I could also put it at the beginning and it would make it its own slide with a black background, or you could adjust that. So from today, I think I'm just going to put it over top of that first picture. And since it's only 4 seconds and the picture is up for 4 seconds, so I will just title this So there I have a title slide, and then a couple other things you can use here. Any of these ones that say lower third, as well as if I scroll down a little bit here, there are a couple other ones that are also on the lower portion of the screen, but they have a colored background or a black background over top of it. So these are used a lot to give additional information that you may not be speaking in the actual narration. So I will always use the same consistent one. So often I do use these ones that say gradient black or soft bar or soft bar white, something like that, because no matter what the color of the picture is, it will always consistently view properly. And sometimes if I have a picture suddenly of the Appalachian Trail in winter, if I'm using just white text, it will blend in too much. So for instance, for today, I'm just going to use this gradient black bar. So let's see here. Oops, I don't want that. So I can give a title. And again, this has defaulted to be up for the entire length of the clip itself, but I could also adjust that. So I could make that a little bit shorter. I could make it up for only, a couple seconds. If I click on just that, it will also now, like I said before, I have selected a title slide, so it'll give me additional information. I could change the font of it, I could change the size, color, some different things. So you are limited with what iMovie is allowing you to make adjustments on the title slides, but there is some flexibility in there. So I have my title, I have images, I have audio, I have my narration, and so I can watch this a little bit. Let's see it one more time. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone, with not a single friend, for they are all smilers and talkers, and therefore unsuitable. I don't really want to be witnessed talking to the catbirds or hugging the old black oak tree. I have my way of praying, as you no doubt have yours. Besides, when I'm alone, I can become invisible. I can sit on... Okay, so you can see that by adding in these title slides, you can add in place, give descriptions of place or who's speaking. Also, additional information can be put on. So if I had statistics or data or an interesting quote or something like that, there are multiple levels of information that you can put on the screen, and we as humans are able to absorb and process a lot of different types of information at the same time. So your narration doesn't have to be reading exactly what's on the screen. We can read it and understand that while still listening to your narration and having the music and whatnot. These are the basic components of iMovie: images, audio, video, title slides. We do have transitions up here. I tend not to make use of them very often. Again, less is more, so cross dissolve and cross blur are the ones that I usually use, maybe some fade to black. And so maybe I would just do fade to black here at the end, and it would just slowly fade that out. I usually only use transitions when I'm truly transitioning from one concept to another. So if my first section of my story was about the Appalachian Trail, and the second was about the destruction of our forest, and they're kind of two different topics within the overarching concept, maybe I would use a transition just to sort of visually guide us to the next portion. But by and large, you can put one shot right next to the next, and that is okay. So now we have a very crudely done video, 40 seconds long, not very long. iMovie saves automatically, so we don't need to save. It will save to whatever computer you are working on under your own login. The computers in the Media Center in the basement of Basler are all available to you. During the day, there are sometimes classes in the microroom, but often the room is available, as well as the computers in the Media Center itself. Those computers do not get wiped, so you can continually come back and work on them. So we recommend you do not use the computers in the microroom in the hub and other places, because those computers are not for long-term projects. So you will save it just by working on your project. So it's already saved, and when you're completely finished with it, so right now we're going to pretend that this is a great project and we're all finished with it. So we're going to go to File, Share, and we're going to use File. So here we are with File. And all this is going to do is this is going to export it as an actual video project. So I can give it a title. It will default to give you the highest resolution that you can, and that depends on what kinds of footage you pulled in. So that is fine, and we will hit next. Okay, it's going to save that. We're going to hit OK. Okay, and again, as I said at the beginning, there's a little pie chart up here, and so this will start to process, and as it processes, then you will see how much has been completed, and then we'll get a notification when it's actually completely finished. Um, Under the share option, there is a share to YouTube. We don't recommend you sharing directly to YouTube because often what happens is it will partially process and then it won't go completely, and then all the time that you spent is actually lost. So we recommend you save it to as a file, and then you can take that file and upload it directly to YouTube at a later time. Okay, so I have my project here. It is, as you can see, it's processing. It had asked to put my project in the documents folder. It also sometimes goes into the movie folder, but as it goes through, like for instance, right now when I look at it, it has the title and it has a QuickTime icon, but because the project has not been completed in the export, as you can see, it says size 0 bytes. It means it's not finished. So you need to wait for this to finish out, and then once it is completed, you will get an actual thumbnail of what your project looked like. So hold on one second. There it is. Probably gonna get, yep, my share was successful. Great. And now I have my thumbnail here. So if I double click on it here, it will open up QuickTime. It says it's 62.4 megabytes at this point. That is fine. Ordinarily, I go to the woods alone with... Okay, great. So now we have our project. We can upload that to Ensemble, possibly, for your class, or YouTube, depending on how you will be submitting it. You won't be submitting it directly through Moodle because the project's too big. So if you're unsure of how to submit it for your class, you can check with your professor or the person who trained your class in the Media Center.